Well, thanks for joining me in today's episode as we pose the question, should you install a wood stove in your truck camper or van conversion? And we talked to 3 different nomads who I've done videos with in the past who have installed wood stoves. Everyone from Brad, who just installed his wood stove in his 4x4 Toyota Sunraider, to Brian from Off Grid Backcountry Adventures, who has been living for 6 years full time and integrating a wood stove into his winter adventures. We also check in with Tobias, who's got a super sweet homemade truck camper in Oregon. So I hope you enjoy the insight from these different nomads, and let's dive on into the video.
Yeah. Yikes. Well, let's check out the inside a bit. You got a wood stove, like right on the entrance, kind of. That's like one of the first things you get to see on the way in.
Yeah. So this is super fun. Doing a lot of kayaking, you have to, and anybody that's in a winter, you're trying to camp in the winter, condensation and moisture is like the biggest thing you got to worry about. So you need a dry source of heat, and so that's why I went with like a wood stove versus like a Mr. Buddy. So it's been really fun. I carry a little chainsaw with me to cut firewood when I'm at camp.
Nice.
So that's been really fun. Oh no, it's just cute. It's fun, something to do when it's like weather out and it keeps you warm.
Yeah.
But it won't keep you warm through the whole night. That's the only downside of it. You usually have it burn for about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, and then maybe get up in the middle of the night if you really are cold.
Yeah, that's usually the move. Like, put the jacket on, put the little fire starter, and get it in, go back to bed for an hour, and come back, and it'll be warm.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with Tobias that the nostalgia of running a wood stove is probably the coolest part I could imagine, but some people wouldn't be as excited to carry a chainsaw around as Tobias. Of course, the wood stove has a lot of pros and cons, but let's talk with the expert and see what Brian has to say on the subject.
Hey, what's up everyone? Brian here from Off Grid Backcountry Adventures. I've been on the road since 2015, and in the wintertime I've been living in a tent with a wood stove, so I've got a lot of experience with that. And I also started to put a wood stove in my awning drop-down room this past winter for like the mud season, so kind of like that shoulder season when it's still wet out and there's still snow and everything. And so Phil asked me to just speak real briefly on what I think it would take to put a wood stove into a vehicle. And there's basically 3 components that you need, I think, in order to do this. Number 1, you need a stove that is airtight. A lot of the stoves that you'll see out there that are smaller are backpacking stoves, and those stoves have a tendency to leak air on the sides of them because you can put them together, they fold down, they're collapsible. That has the seams on it, like the seams aren't sealed, so like around the boxes of it there can be carbon monoxide that can get out, and you don't want that inside your tent. A lot of the backpacking tents that use wood stoves, you know, they've got a lot of airflow, natural airflow coming through, whether it's like a tarp shelter, a hot tent shelter, whatever it may be. So do your due diligence and make sure that the stove that you're going to get is one that is airtight. Number 2, you need to have a heat shield on the interior, so that would be something that would be behind the wood stove and then also underneath it, and that just protects the, you know, whatever the background is from not getting too hot and burning. And then I would think the 3rd component you would need is an insulated stovepipe, because you want the stovepipe that's going up, you know, through the roof of whether it's your RV or your you know, truck topper or your van. You want to have it to where the top of that's not super hot, because like in my stove that I use for my tent and then also for my awning room, I don't have an insulated pipe because I want that heat to come out of it. The heat gets radiated from the stovepipe and then it helps to heat up my tent. But you don't want that inside a vehicle because that heat will go straight up and it could potentially damage whatever's on your roof there. So if you've got things that you know, like a Max fan or something like that, and there's electrical components to it, it could fry it. You could potentially, if you got it hot enough, you could set your vehicle on fire, so you don't want to do that. So I would think an insulated stove would be the third component that you would need to make sure it's a successful endeavor. And then, you know, it's pretty dicey, I would think, like drilling the hole through the top of a roof of a van or, you know, in a topper would be kind of nerve-wracking. Hopefully it'd, you know, turn out okay. But I think there's a bunch of different ways that, you know, you could effectively put a stove into a vehicle or a camper if you use those three components. And I've loved using a wood stove. It's great. It's a dry heat, and so therefore you're not getting a bunch of condensation on your interior, which is always a problem when you're camping in a smaller vehicle. And then cooking over it's great. And then if you can get woods like cedar or juniper, I mean, it just smells awesome in your stove. So it's a great way to start the morning. You get up and you get some cedar going in there. It's popping like crazy. Smells are great. You're cooking breakfast over your stove. It's just really nice. So for those that are thinking about doing it, I definitely recommend it. The stove provides great ambiance. It's just awesome. And I think that it'd be really, really beneficial for any cold weather camping.
Thanks so much for the pointers, Brian. A lot of really good points. And make sure you're following and subscribe to Brian on YouTube at Off Grid Backcountry Adventures. You'll see that Brad, even though he has just installed his wood stove, has figured out a lot of the same type things with his stovepipe and having to have adequate heat shields. So anyways, enough of me chit-chatting. Here's Brad.
It looks like this is
all marine.
added.
That's all marine. This would have been off a boat.
So yeah, because I haven't seen like a, I don't know, resonate, I don't know whatever you call it.
It's just to protect it from the heat.
Yeah, and would it disperse heat more maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. The wood stove's so cool.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the wood stove? Practicality sometimes isn't, like from what I've heard, but it's that feel, right?
It's really cool to have it. I've had it running one time just to try it, see how it did. This got really hot. I am just at the limit of what they say you should be on the height on this. So I'm gonna run a piece of stainless around here with about a 1-inch air gap.
Nice.
And then it'll be okay.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Then it'll be okay.
Trial.
The only other issue you have on these is if your pipe isn't long enough, it gets too cold and you get the creosote. So I started getting creosote on the top. So I had to take my single pipe and turn it into a dual pipe.
Oh.
So
That's
that
a good
was a
idea.
chore.
Yeah, I bet.
That was a chore because it's all stainless and stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah, it looks really cool right there. And then the
a
little
nature's head.
See, oh yeah, the nature's head. Does that slide out?
If you want to see more of Brad's 4x4 Sunraider or any of the builds in this video, check out the Down to Mob homepage. I've got a lot of playlists with tons of really cool rig reviews and walkthroughs. So make sure you comment below, let me know. Did you get something out of this? And what are your thoughts now on a wood stove versus before watching the video? Hit that like if you enjoyed it. And if you really want to support the Down to Mob channel, check out my Patreon. I'll have that link below. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the Jeep Gladiator build series every Saturday. As you know, the only question is, are you down to mob? Woo!